Hello, hello, hello. Did you listen and see me tell the story of why the sea is salty? That story is from long, long ago when people didn't understand science. When they had a question, they went to the smartest person they knew in the village, and that was the storyteller, who would make a story that sounded believable. But do you remember at the end of the story when the giant's leg went up in the air and all the people fell into the ocean with their bags of salt? The giant, with his huge hands, he scooped up and he saved the people. But the salt, it disappeared in the water. It dissolved. What does that mean? Here's something that you can do at home. I listed what you need in my description, but in case you don't have it, you need some water. In a measuring cup is good. You need a glass, little bowl, and a see-through glass, and most importantly, you need salt. Salt. Here we go. S-A-L-T. Salt. First, pour a little bit of salt in your hand. You can take a taste. Do you like the taste? I like the taste of a little bit of salt. I do. I like to put it on my French fries. Now, we're going to have some water. I'm going to put, this is a measuring cup. I'm going to put my water in the glass. I'm going to put 1.5 cups of salt, of water in my glass. Now, we need the salt. I like to measure. This is 1 teaspoon. I measured 1 teaspoon, and I put the teaspoon into the glass. See the salt trickling into my glass? Now I'm going to take a spoon and I'm going to stir it up for 30 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Now, we cannot see any little bits of white floating in my glass. The salt has dissolved. That means it breaks up into such teeny tiny bits that we can't see it anymore. Now, we're going to see if we take our salt. I'm going to measure a teaspoon again and put it in a glass bowl. We're going to measure. And here you might want to use measuring cups. I'm going to measure if 1/4 of a cup makes this dissolve. And we'll stir it around a bit. It's still looking kind of white. I can still see the grains, especially at the bottom. I'll put another 1/4 cup in. Stir it around. I still see some white grains floating around the bottom of my glass. We can keep doing that, keep measuring until the salt dissolves. That's called an experiment. How much water does it take to dissolve a teaspoon of salt? Now, is it different for other things? You can also use sugar. You probably want to take a taste of sugar. That tastes sweet. You can also use pepper. That's a good one to show what something looks like when it does not dissolve. And now, if you're really brave, you can take that salt water. Look at how clear it is now. There is salt in this water. And you can take a teeny tiny sip. Oh, I want to go to the sink and spit it out. I don't understand why salt. I like to taste a little bit of salt in my hand or sprinkled on top of my French fries. But whenever salt is dissolved in water, it tastes, whoa, disgusting, like the sea. Now, why do you think the sea is salty? Someone told me that they believed the story and that a giant threw lots of salt into the sea. Someone else told me that it was the fish that make it salty, or the rocks at the bottom that make it salty. But I thought of all those huge lakes that you go to and the rivers where there are rocks and there are fish. But the water is not salty in a river or in a lake. I had to Google this, and you should Google it too. But I'll tell you, the sea is salty because there's nowhere else for the water to go. So if you said you thought the rocks made the sea salty, you were right. And it does also make the lakes and the rivers salty. But there's always more water coming into the lakes and the rivers from all that snow and rain that dribbles down from the mountains. And then the water that is in the lakes and the rivers rush out and join that big ocean. But when the water is in the ocean, it has nowhere to go. It stays in the sea, and all the salt water keeps flushing into the sea, plus the rocks at the bottom of the sea make that water salty. That is why the sea is salty. Google it. Storyteller Nicolette. Stories at Play.